everybody, and welcome to the Bare Necessities. I'm Bear, and this week we're going to be making chocolate chip cookies. Now this is a redo of an old video that I did so long ago, like 4 months ago when I first started doing the Bare Necessities. I just figured it was time for a little update, and I figured I could actually give you all the ingredients because I forgot about half of them last time. So here we go. For this recipe, you're going to need 1.5 cups of flour, 1 stick of butter, so that's about 4 ounces by weight, or 8 tablespoons, depending on what you've got, if you're using margarine, things like that, to make it easier to measure. You're going to need 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt. It sounds like a lot, and that's because I personally like my cookies to have just a tiny bit of a bite of salt in them. You're going to need 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/2 cup of granulated white sugar, 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. I'm using dark brown because I prefer the flavor, but you use whatever you like. So let's begin. First, you're going to start with the butter. Preferably it would be at room temperature and softened. I had to force a little softness in mine, so it's slightly melted, and they'll still turn out fine. I know people kind of freak out about that. It really is okay. They just spread a tiny bit more, which some of us like. And we're just going to get the butter mashed up and a little creamy, because to that we are adding our white sugar and brown sugar. Now, to let you know, I'm making a quarter batch. The amounts that I just gave you are for a half batch of my cookies. But we don't need a huge amount of cookies around my house, so I'm actually working with things like half an egg instead of a whole one. So fun ratios to keep up with. But that way you're not going, why do I end up with so many more cookies than him? This is why. All right, we're just going to mix this until the butter and the sugars are nicely creamed together, which just means that they kind of hold together and have a soft, almost fluffy appearance. You can use a mixer for this. I actually have a stand mixer that I use for a lot of things, but these come together so quickly, there's really no reason to make that many dishes. All right, and see, it's a little bit lighter than it started. It's whipped because the sugar beats little holes into the butter and leaves kind of a fluffy layer. Now into that, we're going to go ahead and add our egg and vanilla. And just get that mixed in. This is all about getting the layers together before we bake. And as you mix it, you'll notice that this goes incredibly fluffy. It'll start kind of looking like a whipped caramel. That's what you want. Aim for that. Into that, we are going to add our salt and baking soda. Mix those in, just to make sure everything's ready, because now we're going to add in our flour. You can add in just a little bit at a time. I would do about a third, a third, a third. Otherwise, it might just go everywhere. That's not so fun. But as you're adding in thirds, it doesn't have to be perfectly mixed. It's just enough to get in more of it moistened than not, so you don't end up wearing it. I'm gonna go ahead and just do this in two batches. And you just stir. And at this point, you do want everything to be fairly well mixed, but not over mixed, because you don't want to build up a lot of gluten in these cookies. Otherwise, they're chewy for the wrong reason. All right, and don't worry if it looks a little bit on the dry side. It will come together, because you want this dough to not really stick to the bowl. As you see, it comes away cleanly. Leaves a little bit of a butter mess. There's no more beautiful mess than butter, trust me. Finally, we're going to add our chocolate chips. And at this point, you can add really anything that you want. I had thought about adding some dried cranberries or raisins. That'd be absolutely delicious in these. I know not everybody's a raisin fan, but I am. I love a good raisin cookie. Another would be chopped up dates with the chocolate chips. It would just be phenomenal. All right, we've got this mixed together. So we've got our little bit of dough. Now in that time, I was also preheating my oven to 350 degrees. Let's get ready to scoop. I use cookie scoops. You can use whatever you like. If you don't really have cookie scoops, because, you know, I'm spoiled, just use a nicely sized spoon, whatever size you want. If you have like the big soup spoons or a tablespoon, just use that. Scoop out enough to make it a little bit of a heap, and then ball it up and put it on. It'll turn out just fine. You don't have to have so much equipment in your kitchen. And we're just going to get these scooped up onto the tray. Should only take a moment, because again, this is a very small batch. All right, and we now have 12 little cookies. And I was using a 2 tablespoon size scoop, so 1 full ounce each, just to give you an idea. I'm going to pop these into the oven for about 11 minutes. At 5.5 to 6 minutes, I'm going to turn the tray around. I know my oven and the back of it is way hotter than the front, so I want to make sure everybody has a chance to crisp up and brown for us. These cookies will come out with the little brown ring on the outside and the chewy center that you want. So let's get these baked, and I will be right back. All right, so our chocolate chip cookies have finished baking. Like I said, they were going into my oven for 11 minutes. At halfway through, I turned them around just to make sure they all got an even bake. And here they are. I let them cool for about 5 minutes before I put them on the plate, and then they've just kind of chilled here for a couple minutes while I get ready for this next segment. I hope you enjoy making these as much as I always do. This is one of the simplest recipes, and it's probably one of my happiest ones for me. Find a little pleasure in your day. Have a cookie, if you can. Until next time, bye.